So, welcome everyone. I'd like to call the first meeting of the MWPA Citizens Oversight Committee to order. Let's first call the roll, please.
Kingston Cole. I see you, but I didn't hear you.
No, not hearing you.
Can't hear you, Kingston.
Tell you what, I'll continue with the roll while you work out your sound. Larry Minikis.
Yes, here. Kingston, if you hit your space bar, that might solve it.
Or hold it down.
Hold it down. No. Go into your,
maybe an issue with the headset as well.
I can help him. If he goes into his preferences, if you open your preferences at the top, and there's a place there for audio, and you might be able to fix it there, Kingston. Sorry.
I started out with headphones as well, and I also couldn't hear, and then I took them out and it worked. So
Yeah, you might want to make sure it's plugged in tightly.
Sure. No.
There we go.
Is that right? That work?
Got
Yes.
you now. All right. Stephen Keese.
Here.
Lucy Dilworth.
Here.
Rebecca Suggs.
Here.
Pat Randolph.
Here.
Larry Chu.
Here.
Max Perry.
here,
Perry or Perret?
Ray.
Thank you. And Carolyn Longstreth.
Present.
Excellent. Everyone is present and we have a quorum.
Excellent. Well, welcome all. Thanks so much for attending. Let's move to item. First of all, any agenda adjustments, please?
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve the agendas as presented. I see a second by Stephen Keese. Do we need to call the roll?
Not for agenda adjustments. We can just say we're good with it.
Okay, so we're good. Excellent. So this is the time for public expression. And I see that we do have some members of the public. Welcome all. This is the time for the public to address the Citizens Oversight Committee at this time on matters that are not on the agenda. Please be advised that the Citizen Oversight Committee cannot discuss or take action or comment on any items not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes, and we will be watching our time, please. So we would like to ask that comments be respectful to the community within 3 minutes. And I ask everyone, please, to silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone, please, while reporting out. So, Mark, do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment?
And I'm looking for any raised hands. And at this time, I see no raised hands.
Excellent. Well, thanks all. Let's move to item number 5. This is the opportunity for introductions, where each member of the Citizen Oversight Committee can introduce yourselves to the rest of us and to the public. And according to protocol, I believe that we do need to ask if there are any points of clarification or questions before we proceed on this matter. None.
And if I may suggest, we can go down to order that we have the roll call order, just so it would be easy so people know when they're up to speak.
That'd be excellent. As listed on the agenda, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay, if I may call each of you in order then. First, Kingston Cole, please. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm the taxpayer representative from COST, the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers. My background is Georgetown undergraduate, Foreign Service School, Creighton Law School, bartender, civil rights movement. Went to work for AT&T for a number of years, and then set up my own consulting firm where I basically advise very large transit agencies and states about how they could develop fair market value for their rights of way with fiber optics and cell towers on their sites. And I retired a couple of years ago, and I've been having more fun with costs ever since. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Kingston. Second, Larry Minikis, please introduce yourself.
Well, I have a small business, just so you know my background, and manufacturer over in China. I've been doing that for a long time. I'm in the health and wellness area. I got involved really in nonprofit and environmental work about 1992, and served on the Bay Area Trails Preservation Council at that time. And then shortly after that, joined the Tamalpais Conservation Club. I stayed with both those organizations for a good 20 plus years. I was president of the Tamalpais Conservation Club, total of 6 times. We published a book on the 100-year history of Mount Tamwa. Was there. We put on a music festival that now to date has raised 6 figures for state parks. This was all at my urging. Also at my urging, I guess I might as well say, we sued state parks very successfully on the way they wanted to propose a trail. And what we were concerned about particularly was putting traffic on hiking trails. And we were very much opposed to that. So we settled on that, and that has actually become now the blueprint for how state parks goes forward across the state in determining parks. I've also served on the Watershed Infrastructure Committee. I founded the Watershed Citizens Advisory Committee at the beginning of the turn of the century here, and we had a 2-year mission. We had 12 people on that. We worked very closely with staff over 2 years, and that has become policy number 7, the watershed management policy, which has been updated twice, and was also the basis for 110. I was early in the beginning of 110 there. I was there for all of that for several years, and in terms of this, I've been actually since 95, I believe it was, I started to really get on the need to how should I say this, to manage our forests. I have no background in this, but I saw, what I began to see was trees dying, oak trees dying in Tucker Ravine. And it really concerned me, these beautiful trees. And so I started to look into things. I looked into the need, like this book here, which is a Bible, which Bruce knows because this was his professor.
Carry the torch, Harold Biswell.
Right. And
What does it say, Larry? I can't read the title.
Oh, sorry, it's here. Is that better?
Prescribed
Burning
okay.
by Harold Biswell. It comes up back.
Great, yeah.
Very good book, and it's a Bible, and that really woke me to how backward we were thinking back in the 90s. And so I started going before the water board. I started going before the board of directors of open space and such, and saying, look, we need to do more with fire. I've written numerous letters to the paper, pieces in the paper. I've spoken a lot on the subject over the years, and I'm passionate about it. And when Bell Cole from We Are Now ESP, I'm also on the Environmentally Sensitive Practices Partnership, a member of that. I'm on the steering committee, plus several other committees, which I could pull up, and the Fire and Environmental Working Committee for MCL. And so I've really been involved in this from the beginning. I got involved in the Measure C activity back in summer of 2019, and have been involved right from the very beginning. I'm attending all the meetings, and so I'm really up to speed on where we are at this point. And it's wonderful. There's a lot going on. We have a lot to learn. I'm sorry if I took too much time. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful introduction and your continued service. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Stephen Keys, please introduce yourself. And you are on mute, Stephen. Unmute yourself.
Hold your space bar down if all else fails.
You're still muted, Stephen.
You're still muted. No. Stephen, you are muted.
You're muted. He's saying go to the next person.
Okay, well, Stephen, so Lucy Dilworth, please, welcome.
Unmute yourself, Lucy.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm Lucy Dilworth. I came to America as an undergraduate and went to UC Berkeley. Stayed in the Bay Area for a long time, then went to Stanford Law School. Practiced law at a very big white shoe law firm in the transactional law side of things, corporate and securities law. Then I did various other sort of, then I got involved down in Palo Alto in startup law. And I did, and then I also, then I quit that and became an attorney for Legal Services for Children, which is a volunteer legal organization where I represented kids as for immigration issues and guardianship, family law issues. Then I became the director of law and biosciences at Hastings Law School. And then I became an assistant professor where I founded their startup garage, the startup clinical program there. And then I came to Marin a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, actually 4 years ago, no, 3. And I joined the grand jury as a way of getting to know the county. And I was involved in writing the grand jury report that recommended the creation of the MWPA. And I am currently foreperson of the existing longest running grand jury in history. We're now coming up for 18 months. I am a Bald Hill Firewise community founder and leader. And I'm very pleased to be here and to get to know you all and to get down to work.
Wonderful. Welcome, Lucy. Thank you so much. I see that Stephen is having some technical problems, so let's move on to Rebecca. Rebecca Suggs, please. Please introduce yourself.
So I am part of the grand jury this year, was on the grand jury last year, worked on the report that recommended the MWPA, and there ends my similarity with Lucy Dilworth's history. So I spent most of my career working for either telecommunications companies or training companies that represented telephone companies. So a lot of telecommunications background. I was head of the delivery for training for Accenture when I retired, but we were responsible for the training for AT&T, Avaya, other outsourced training in telecommunications. So most of my background is in telecommunications. And I retired, moved to Marin. And other than work, let's see, doing, I did volunteer work for schools in San Rafael, teaching reading for English as a second language students in the Canal District mostly. And I was a teacher's aide there for 6 or 7 years. And then civil grand jury. And I think that's it.
Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for your
Sure.
introduction. Pat Randolph, please. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Pat Randolph. I was reminded of university when a couple of people have mentioned that. I graduated from Vanderbilt University that just had the first woman ever to play on an all-male team, very interestingly. Career-wise, I was a high school teacher, I then moved over and worked in university administration, ending up my career at UCSF in the medical school, doing administrative work in support of the education, clinical, and research missions. After I retired, I got very involved initially in UC Marin Master Gardeners and held several different leadership roles with Master Gardeners. And then I was on the grand jury for 2 years, 2017-18 and 2018-19, which is I was the foreperson of that jury, and that's the jury that wrote the wildfire report, and hence I know Lucy and Rebecca. And when that ended, I spent about a year working to get the JPA that became the MWPA approved and worked on Measure C. I've been just submitted an application to have my neighborhood become a Firewise community, and that's taken up a lot of my time during the COVID time. And I'm delighted to be here. I applied for this because I passionately want to see the MWPA succeed. And I think the Citizens Oversight Committee can have a role in seeing that the original intentions are met and that money is used wisely, and that we can be a link to the public and sharing the good news of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for your continued service. Wonderful. Larry Chu, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Chu. I live in Larkspur. I served 4 terms on the Larkspur City Council, and I just retired in December. At that time, I had volunteered to work on the Measure C campaign, where I served as the treasurer, working with Jason Weber and Katie Rice and Richard and several of the other people who are also here on this call tonight. In terms of my background that might be applicable to this committee, I served on the actually chaired a JPA oversight committee for the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council Members. I was a council member for the Central Marin Police Authority and also the Central Marin Fire Authority before I retired from the council. I also served on a public safety committee for the League of California Cities, looking at legislation as it relates to fire, police, emergency management, anything related to public safety. Professionally, where it fits in with this is, I have a background in accounting and tax, and in my current role for federal agency right now, I also deal in business continuity and emergency management.
Wonderful, Larry. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation. And I see the smiling face of Stephen Keese, and let's see if we can hear his voice.
Yes, can you hear me now? Hey, I got it. I had to reboot the computer, and it wouldn't even shut down until I closed it and unplugged it. Finally, boy, somehow or other, I really messed it up. I have no idea. All right. So anyhow, my background. From my accent, you can maybe tell I come from East Tennessee. Went to military school for 6 years. Actually, Pat knows about it because she had grandchildren go both to that one and the rival school. And went off to Harvard and then dropped out and joined the Peace Corps, and then had a farm in Brazil and helped prospect for oil off the Amazon, and then came back to the States and got very active in abortion rights and zero population growth and similar things. Did a bunch of nonprofit things in Boston, learned the computer business by working at John Hancock for 10 years, and then came to California because I got tired of the winters. Have been up here in Marin for about 5 years now in Fairfax, and had the great good luck and pleasure to be on the grand jury that wrote the wildfire report. And several of us decided that it wasn't enough just to write the report, that this was an important issue, and simply providing the report and letting others figure out what to do about it, we decided we wanted to get involved. So you see 4 of us here who were on that report, and it was great satisfaction that not only did we do a great report, our Citizens for Wildfire Preparedness helped work with Jason Weber and Bill Tyler and others to get the MWPA formatted. And can you turn off the sound? Sorry. And put together the blueprint that resulted in this really fine organization. And so we're feeling that, at least I am feeling that a great deal of satisfaction about what has happened so far. And I'm looking forward to working with this group, because it sounds like it looks like a really fine bunch of people to help just watch over the shoulders of Bruce and Mark and others, and see if we can't contribute something to the success of it. As I think I've said on a couple of board meetings at open, at public time, my concern is to make sure that this organization accomplishes stuff in such a manner that the public is proud and quite happy to renew its financial support. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. We're really glad to have you looking over our shoulder. We really, truly are. Next, Max Fury, please, if hope I pronounced your name properly.
It's Furay.
Max Furay, excellent. We'll have that, good.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bruce. I'm Max Furay, born and raised in Marin, 3rd generation Mill Valleyan. I've been active in Marin County civic issues and environmental policy for quite a long time, going back to high school. Larry Chu may remember that him and his daughter Kira were on a nonprofit board together as the youth members about a decade and a half ago. Anyway, in the last few years, I've gotten very engaged in emergency preparedness. I worked for Supervisor Katie Rice for 2 years, about 5 years ago. And while I was there, I was her aide focused on Fire Safe Marin, which she chairs. And I got very interested in seeing what we could do as a county to become more fire safe, to let people know what they could do to become more adept at responding to emergencies and being prepared ahead of time. For the last 2 years, I've served on the Mill Valley's Emergency Preparedness Commission. I currently serve as the vice chair, and in that role, I have worked on a number of different initiatives, including this year, we've gotten up and going a number of neighborhood response groups. My neighborhood, which is the Boyle Park neighborhood, is kind of next in line. So in the next months, we'll be forming ours, but we have a number of active committees, and I serve on the steering committee that oversees the neighborhood response groups for the city and the outlying areas of Mill Valley. We've also formed during COVID times a Southern Marin Disaster Council, where the EPC, the Emergency Preparedness Commission, has a seat at the table on that body. So I've been active there and attended all those meetings as well. And we're really trying to see what we can do to help coordinate things in a larger area. I think oftentimes as a county, we live in our silos. And as we know, wildfire knows no boundaries, COVID knows no boundaries, flooding knows no boundaries. And we all have to step up and work together, or else we'll run into difficulties. So it's really a pleasure to be here. I think that the mission of the MWPA is critical, and that's why I'm really excited to be here. And I'll also just add, perhaps applicable to the Oversight Committee, that the last few months I've been working on a ballot measure in Contra Costa County, Measure X. And through that process, helped design and be in all the discussions formulating what their oversight committee will look like and looking at the different options. And it was interesting to do that simultaneous to going through the process of being appointed to this body to see, what the sausage making is that goes into choosing what sort of groups and stakeholders are going to be having seats at the table and how that works. And I think that the group we have here is really something to be proud of. So great to be here.
Thank you, Max. Welcome. Thank you. And last, Carolyn Longstreth, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carolyn Longstreth. This looks like a great group. I'm honored to be part of it. Okay, I'm a 5th generation Californian. I grew up in Southern California. And then at the tender age of 25, I moved to New York and then Connecticut, and I lived there for over 30 years. And I got a law degree. I was a prosecutor for quite a few years. That was my main career. I was on the appellate level, so I handled criminal cases for the state in the Connecticut Appellate and Supreme Court. And I really enjoyed that. It was a super job. However, I took early retirement quite early, like all the way back in 2003. And I became involved in lots of, in various nonprofit groups. And in 2006, we moved to Inverness. Really wanted to come back to California and was fortunate to persuade my husband that this was a good idea. And here we are, and we couldn't be happier. And since I've been here, I have devoted a lot of time to nonprofit groups. I got involved right away with the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin. Some of you may be familiar with it. And I was actually board chair for a number of years, 7 or 8 years. But at the same time, I got involved with the California Native Plant Society, and I was involved on the state level. I ended up on the state board, and I stepped down from that a few years ago, and I'm still active on the local chapter board. And in that capacity, I got involved more recently with a kind of a focused environmental group directed exactly to the Wildfire Authority. And we are seeking to press protections of natural resources. Bruce is nodding. Mark is familiar with us, obviously. And so we have ongoing discussions about that. And our group is called FERN, Fire and Environment Resilience Network. So that's really been fun and rewarding. I've been enjoying it a lot. And I thought it would be also a good idea to apply for this commission to just, contribute whatever I can to the oversight. I ended up as the West Marin representative. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm sure we're all going to get to know each other better as time goes on.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carolyn. Thanks for coming along with all your talents. What a great team. This is a time, we have quite a few members of the public. This is an opportunity for the public to comment if they wish. Comments no more than 3 minutes, please.
And I'm looking for any raised hands. And at this time, I see no raised hands.
No comments. Well, thanks, everybody. Let's move on to item number 6, which is an overview of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. This is a verbal report by our Executive Officer, Mark Brown. So, Mark.
Good evening, everybody. And let me give you a formal welcome to the Citizens Oversight Committee. I very much look forward to working with you all, and almost feel a little bit silly giving an overview of the MWPA to this group, because so many of you were so instrumental in creating it. But for our members of the public, and just for a benchmark to start from, I'll give you a quick overview. And I think there are really 3 documents that helped create the MWPA, culminating with the grand jury report. The first document is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan that was developed and published in 2016. followed up by the lessons learned from the 2017 fire siege in North Bay that was published in 2018, and really put together a comprehensive list of actions that public safety agencies, land management agencies, and homeowners needed to take in order to avoid what happened in the 2017 firestorm in the North Bay. And of course, everybody's been watching the fire behavior across the state and understanding that this new fire environment actually is no longer a new fire environment. It is the fire environment that we have now. And then the grand jury report of 2019. And if you guys were at our last board of directors meeting, you've heard that grand jury has received a report and excellence reporting for that specific report. I have to say it was amazing how many people, how many different groups came together to make Measure C successful. And it crossed all bounds, whether it was jurisdictional bounds, disciplinary bounds, or viewpoints. Everyone came together because everyone sees that this needs to happen. I think that's fairly amazing. And the voter approval speaks to how important our mission is. Quick overview of our structure. We have a board of directors. Every board of director has to be an elected official of a member agency. In order to be a member agency, you have to have two things: taxing authority and fire protection authority. And I'll bring out a couple specifics on why that's important. And I'll use Novato as my first example. This town of Novato is not a member agency because they don't have fire protection responsibility. There is the Novato Fire District that overlays the town and also goes into unincorporated areas. That is the agency that has taxing and fire authority for that area. And that's why the Novato Fire District is part of a member agency and not the town. And then as a slightly different example, I'll use Ross Valley Fire. Its setup is that the Ross Valley Fire Department does not have taxing authority. The three towns and the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District, so the three towns being Ross, San Anselmo, Fairfax, and the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District, maintain the taxing and fire authority. Therefore, they each have a seat on the board as member agencies. And again, it's the elected members of the councils or boards that appoint someone to the board of directors of the MWPA. And by the language of the ordinance, none of them are paid to be on the board of directors for the MWPA. The next committee to discuss is the operations committee. And a member from each of the member agencies sits on the operations committee. That committee is really what guides our plan of work and how we are going to achieve our mission of the MWPA. And these members range from fire chiefs to city managers, or the basic broad category of the members of the operations committee. And they create through their staff the large or the grand outline of the work plan. And then that brings in the advisory technical committee. Again, each member agency has a seat on that. And the advisory technical committee can also have members at large appointed by the board to be members in that committee. The advisory technical committee will be having its first meeting December 9th. And they're really the ones that will be taking that broad outline, that broad scope from the operations committee, working out the details, working closely with all of our stakeholders in order to make it a comprehensive and transparent process. Then those are the three committees that are listed in the JPA language. However, through the bylaws, the board of directors have created an executive committee and a finance committee. The executive committee specifically works with me to help guide agenda development and high-level strategy prior to going into each of our board meetings. And then the finance committee is working closely with me for the financial policy development and also mid-year budget reviews, quarterly budget reviews, and providing guidance to the overall board. So the funding structure, obviously for the mission of the Citizens Oversight Committee, the funding structure is an important thing to discuss. And there's the 60-20-20 that most of you are well aware of. 60% of the funding goes towards our core programs, which includes vegetation management projects, evacuation route clearing, evacuation system improvements and notification system improvements, and public education. The next bucket is the 20% bucket for defensible space. And that is towards defensible space evaluations. And there's two ways that agencies can go about this. They can look to the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority to perform those DSpace evaluations within their jurisdiction, or they can opt out and receive their portion of the 20% and manage their own defensible space evaluation program. And they get their share of that 20% based on their population. And I'll use really simple math here for my benefit. If that jurisdiction has 20% of the population, they get 20% of the 20%. Minus, there's a little caveat in there, minus 2% to be taken off available for an abatement program for when we can create the funds in the process and have the staff to manage an abatement program. And the final 20% bucket is for local mitigation projects. And that's with the acknowledgement that the communities themselves, the jurisdiction authorities, are the people that really know what's best for their communities. And so they could take, it basically a pass through of their portion of the 20%, same formula. If they're 20% of the population, they get 20% of the 20% for local mitigation projects within their jurisdiction, because they really know what's important for their communities. A couple things to point out on that 60%, and also it goes to the 20% for defensible space. No more than 10% of the 60 can be used for the administration of the MWPA. And again, no more than 10% of the 20% for DSpace can be used for administration of the DSpace program. And that is specifically so we can be lean and mean and put more money towards projects rather than money towards employees. And then I think another key point to bring up is 80% of the core monies must be spent in the geographical area of which it was gained with a 5-year smoothing. So over looking at the project over a 5-year period, and let's use the Ross Valley as an example, 80% of the money that was gathered from the property taxes in the Ross Valley must be spent over that 5-year period. And so you may not have that 80% year by year by year, but once you add it all together for the 5 years, you must have that 80%, meet that 80% goal. And obviously those last few items that I discussed, I think are going to be very important items for the COC to monitor and ensure that we are upholding that promise to the taxpayers that their money is spent in the right location. And then for closing out the overview, I would like to do a quick screen share of the JPA language specifically that is the language for the Citizens Oversight Committee. And I am not going to read it to you. I'll read it slowly and then kind of look for the thumbs up across the panel to make sure it's time for us to move on. So let me make sure that I can get the screen share going for you. And there we go. Now, I've received several thumbs up, and I will stop the screen share and pass it back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Mark. Really, that was an excellent overview, really wonderful. This is an opportunity for the board to ask questions or points of clarification. We'll hold discussion until later, give the public an opportunity to comment. So I see that Stephen Keese, I see your hand up, please, and you need to unmute yourself. Yay.
It worked. Yeah. I just wanted to comment on the 20% that goes to each jurisdiction. That there was a restriction on that money also, I believe, which was that it needs to be either for new or expanded projects. It can't be simply to pay for something that was already in progress to free up other funds.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. I should have included that in my report. That's the no supplanting clause is within the language and very important.
Excellent point, Stephen. Let's see, I see Lucy and then Max.
I just wanted to ask a question, Mark. You mentioned 2% for an abatement program, and I wasn't familiar with this. Is this 2% of the 20% for the D out of the D space? And specifically, what do you mean by abatement as opposed to any other kind of vegetation management?
The abatement process, and Ross Valley Fire has been doing the abatement process for a few years, and that involves the D-space evaluators go out, evaluate the property, give recommendations, and if over a year or more that property is not doing the work, you can actually put forth an abatement where the MWPA would hire the resources to go and do the work on that property and use that fund of money to provide that. And then most likely through, and it requires a local ordinance for each area. MWPA doesn't have the jurisdictional authority to do this. So each jurisdiction would need to create an ordinance that allows the abatement. And then a property tax lien would be placed on that property to pay back what was done for that work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question, Lucy. Max, please, question or clarify.
Yeah, just a question for Mark. I think it would be helpful to hear a little bit about Tiburon Peninsula, I believe is the only area of the county that's not a member of the MWPA. Just how they interact with the MWPA or do they at all?
Great question. So the lead up to the creation of MWPA is that each agency that had taxing or fire service authority had to go through two hearings. One was a reading of the ordinance. Second was to approve the ordinance. And every council and board was given the opportunity to join. Tiburon and Belvedere both chose not to join. They felt that they had the resources to meet that mission. So therefore our relationship really, there is not a relationship, but we do want to make sure that there are coordinated efforts. And there are more than two ways, but the two key ways that those coordinated efforts will continue is through Fire Safe Marin. Tiburon is an active member of Fire Safe Marin, and then the Fire Prevention Officers Association of Marin. And so that's how we'll be able to create the consistency.
Great.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Mark. Great answer. Any other questions, points of clarification from directors before we go to public comment? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the public to speak.
And I'm looking for raised hands, and at this time I see no raised hands. Okay,
well, wonderful. Mark, excellent job. Really great start here. And there's no need for a motion, or we're now going to move on to item number 7, which is the Citizens Oversight Committee roles and responsibilities, and to elect a chair and a vice chair. And the recommendation is that we have a very brief discussion about roles and responsibilities of the membership. And I just want to caution everyone that a lot of the work that you'll be doing in developing your bylaws and defining specific roles and responsibilities and actions and processes, is that work is yet to be done. So I'd rather not discuss or speculate at this point in time. I'd really like to keep this very brief and then move into the election of a chair and a vice chair with your permission.
And if I may, Bruce, just add a couple things. And, I think what would be relevant for a conversation now is the roles and responsibilities discussion about the chair and the vice chair. So anyone who accepts the nomination and is voted understands what they're getting into. And really, the chair, I think many of you have probably been members or been chairs of a group like this, so you're probably well aware, but you're the person that would be facilitating the meetings, that you would be guiding the agenda development, working with me to guide that agenda development. And then, taking the lead, working with the rest of the committee members as you work through your mission. And as far as tenure, that is something that would need to be worked out as you guys develop bylaws. And then the vice chair is just a person that is working side by side with the chair and ready to step into place for our meeting development and meeting coordination. My suggestion, since there are no bylaws for the Citizens Oversight Committee at this time, is that we would open the floor for any questions first, then go to public comment, and then allow for members of the COC to nominate any person for the chair. And then we can go through a vote. And I do not think that, in discussing this with our legal counsel, that the percentage voting that is part of the board of directors and the ops committee does not apply to the COC, and we would be looking for a simple majority for that vote. After we successfully go through the chair, then we would do the same process for the vice chair. Does that work for all of you folks? Okay.
Thank you, Mark. I'm seeing all heads nod and a thumbs up. So this is the opportunity for first questions or points of clarification from the board before we go in for nominations. Do I see any? Please raise your hand. Any questions? Seeing none, let's open this up for nominations for chairman of the Citizens Oversight Committee. I see Stephen Keese. Your hand is up. Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there anybody interested in it?
I see.
Good, we got it. I nominate Larry Menekes.
Interesting.
Is that kind of like to step back or step forward? And
That's right. Listen, not so fast here.
So Larry Menekes has been expressed interest and been nominated as chairperson of the Citizens Oversight Committee. Any further?
I
Hi, Carolyn.
I'm impressed with Max's background and his really, well, a lot of people have been involved in this for a long time, but I thought maybe Max would be a good candidate if he's interested.
Sure, I'd be happy to accept the nomination. Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
Okay.
And I actually was going to nominate Larry Chu, but he didn't raise his hand. So Larry, if you'd like to also be thrown in, but if Larry Menekes is interested, I've known Larry for a number of years, and I'd be happy to support him as well. So
Excellent, excellent. I see Lucy Dilworth. I see your hand is up, please.
So particularly because of his financial expertise, I was thinking that Larry Chu would be an excellent chairman.
Excellent. I'm hearing the building of a consensus here. Seeing no other.
You have to get Larry to raise his hand, don't we? Larry.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
We have two Larrys. We got to remember that.
Oh,
and
that's true.
Wait a minute, Larry is saying something. What's that, Larry?
I just said I'd be happy to serve, but at the same time, if there are other people who have a strong preference to it, I'd just find assisting in any way I can.
Excellent. Thank you. So Larry Menekes, please. Yes.
I'll just say a few words. I've been going to literally every meeting from way back in August, so I can hit the ground running. And I know walking into this, the enormous amount of work that's in front of us. And I also feel that responsibility because we're not just talking about plants or animals. We're talking about lives. We're talking about people's homes. And it's and all of this. And so it's just a huge responsibility. And I just feel that it's not a personal thing, it's a community perspective that I've been here long enough. I know what needs to be brought forward to this committee, so that we have a big learning curve, and I can really help facilitate that and bring people to us that can speak to us to issues that we're going to be very concerned about going forward. And that's about what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I'm seeing thumbs up. So we have a nomination for Larry Minikes. It seems as though Larry Chu, you expressed interest, but also consent to if someone else was interested in serving. Where are we? Mark?
And
Max
there-
Perret
Max.
also.
a nomination for Max. And so my suggestion is that we receive seconds for those. And for the instance where we have 3 nominations, again, we would need to have a majority vote for one of the persons to be elected. So if we go through the 3, and I see Larry raising his hand, but if we were to go through the 3 and no member received the full majority, then we would take the top 2 and again, go through a polling for the top 2.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. And Larry Chu, I see you have your hand up, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like Larry has a strong preference to serving, and I'd be willing to withdraw my name from consideration.
Excellent.
And I would as well.
Excellent. Okay, I think we're coming to.
I appreciate that.
I think we're
It's
coming
Could you
done.
speak up, Larry Chu? I couldn't get everything you said.
Oh, I just said it seems like Larry has a strong preference to serve, so I would withdraw myself from consideration.
I see, okay.
And I said that was fine by me as well. I think Larry expressed a lot of interest, and he's someone who I think has served on a number of boards and can lend itself well to the position.
May I suggest a ticket? Maybe Larry Minikes for chair and Larry Chu for vice chair.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
This sounds like a motion. This sounds like a motion.
Do we have a second?
Max allow for a joint motion on those? I'm not sure.
See how the motion.
I second that.
I'll second that.
And to Max's
Do Larry.
well, Max's question as far as do we have the flexibility to do a slate like this? And I believe the fact that we don't have a set bylaws for the Citizens Oversight Committee with concurrence of this committee, yes, we have that flexibility.
Sounds like we're on your.
And then Bruce, I suggest now that we have the motion and the second, that we open up to any public comment, and then we can go for a vote.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So public, this is your opportunity to comment, please.
And looking for any raised hands, and I see no raised hands.
Seeing none, it's back to the board.
And I'll call roll call for a vote. Kingston Cole,
Yes.
Larry Minikes,
Oh, yes.
that was the chance to say no.
better say-
Stephen Keese,
Yes,
Lucy Dilworth,
Yes.
Rebecca Suggs,
Yes.
Pat Randolph,
Yes.
Larry Chu,
Yes.
Max Perret,
Yes.
Carolyn Longstreth.
Yes.
We have 100% vote.
It's my pleasure to announce that we have a President Minikes, and Vice President Larry Chu. You have a lot of work to do, and now this is my opportunity to state that it is my great pleasure to hand the gavel over to Chairperson, Larry Minikes. Larry, the show is yours.
Wait a minute. So I guess at this point we go on to number 8, develop a process to create the COC bylaws, which is going to be a big job, of course. And I did ask if we had some templates that we could look at. And Bruce, you said that there would be some templates for us to consider.
Yes, absolutely. Mark and I talked about that. There are several that are really very close to I think, the core mission responsibilities here. And so this is some staff work that could be done and be brought to your subcommittee that puts the bylaws together. Nothing to share at this point, but we will bring that forward.
Okay, so we will need to form a subcommittee for the bylaws, I assume. So I'll take hands if anyone wants to volunteer.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so we got Lucy and Rebecca and Max. Okay. So you will be the bylaws committee, and we have emails, so.
And I do note that there's 10 members. I'm not sure if anyone's absent. And with the Brown Act, I believe that means we could have 4 people on a subcommittee.
Correct.
Max, you're right. And it's actually 9 members. So, but the number is still the same.
Okay.
So was Pat, did you want to be on the committee?
I'm willing to be on the committee, but if there's somebody else who wants to, but I would be happy to work with.
Right.
It sounds like we can have 4 people, and 3 of us raised our hands, so you're the 4th.
Okay.
And as
Who was it? Rebecca? Rebecca, did you say yes? I'm sorry.
I did.
Yeah, okay.
and Larry, my suggestion would be for a motion for the slate with a second.
Oh, yes. So we'll put a motion out there. Second. So Stephen seconding. All in favor? If
Aye.
any opposition? Okay.
And one
Unanimous.
quick step, we probably should open up for public comment.
Correct.
So now's the time for any members to raise their hand if they would like to comment. I'm looking for any raised hands. And at this time, I see none.
Wonderful.
And Larry, as Bruce mentioned, I'll be your point of contact within staff.
Sure.
And I will do the legwork to get some templates for you. I've already been given some recommendations of good examples to send your guys' way, and I'll take care of that.
Excellent. Excellent. Looking forward to that. And our number 9 is assign COC members to monitor MWPA committees and board subcommittees. And so I think I would ask at this time if anyone has preferences as to a committee or subcommittee that you would like to monitor. Kingston, I think you would be natural for finance.
Yes, I think
Right?
that's fine.
And Larry Chu.
Okay.
And Larry Chu's got his hand up.
And Larry, of course, Larry, yeah.
Yeah, I can help out with oversight of the finance committee.
I assumed you would offer as well from your background, which is great. Thank you. Yes, Pat.
You know, there are a couple of them that I'm interested in. One, the executive committee. I have been, like many of us, I've been attending almost every meeting that's happened, but I'm also, because it's never met, interested in the advisory and technical committee. So if we're allowed to do 2, I'd like to do those 2, or either one of them if we want to divide it up more.
Pat, I would offer that you can have interest and monitor as many of the committees, any of us as we please. I don't think there's any reason to limit it at all. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Stephen, was your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was. I was going to say just what you said, but to say that, as I understand, assignment to a committee means that you can watch all of them if you want to, but you will at least watch either in real time or the recording of the meeting of the specific ones that you've signed up for.
Well, I think the purpose would be to bring it back to
Yes.
this committee,
Right.
where we would have an agenda, which would give a report on each one of those. So yeah. And I was also going to say, since some of these committees are so new, and Lucy, I saw your hand up, so I don't want to, but since these are so new, that if you're not ready to make a choice, that's okay. If you want to go to a couple of meetings, say, hey, I'm really interested in this area. I like what's going on there. That's fine too. So you don't have to feel this moment that you have to volunteer. Lucy, you were next, and then Rebecca, you had your hand up.
Well, I would be interested in sitting on the operations committee.
Okay,
And I also would be interested in operations.
okay, great. Thank you, Max and Lucy.
So operations was going to be my choice too, but you probably really don't want 3 people. So
It's
how,
I'm gonna watch it anyhow.
it's probably okay. We can always adjust as we go along, Rebecca, I think.
okay, then operations.
Okay, and Carolyn, you were next.
Is the board of directors one of the committees that we're observing? Well, I've been going to many of their meetings. I would like to, keep an eye on the board. That would be fine with me.
Perfect.
Okay.
Stephen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm interested in the technical advice. Well, I'm interested in all of them, but the technical advisory committee and the executive committee.
Okay, got it.
I would like to add my name to the board as well. If that's
Okay. Very good. Any more at this point? As I said, don't feel compelled at this point necessarily, because we're still very early.
What else is left?
Good point.
I was just doing that mental math here, looking at my notes, and you guys have captured all of them. And if you would like, I can review my notes and we can have a motion, a second public comment, and then vote if you like. And then, like Larry mentioned, and multiple of you mentioned, you're free to, anyone's free to attend any of the meetings, right? And then since this is so early in development, and I see no reason to limit our numbers, you definitely can feel free to add to these later on. Does that work for you, Larry?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think flexibility is important at this point.
So I'll start at the board of directors, and my notes captured Carolyn and Lucy. Going to the executive committee, I have Pat and Stephen. For the finance committee, I have Kingston and Larry Chu. Operations, I have Lucy, Max, and Rebecca. And for the advisory technical committee, I have Stephen and Pat. Did I miss anybody?
I think you missed Stephen on the finance.
Thank you. Is that correct, Stephen? You're muted.
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 All right, yes, sure.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'll add Stephen to the finance. Any other additions?
Just with Larry Minicke's, if you were hoping to be on any of them.
Well, I think I'm ad hoc. I believe I think that's the appropriate role in this case. So I would be a member of all of them, I believe.
Correct.
Carolyn, please.
Yeah, I'm hoping that somebody will be sending around, rough minutes. I think Mark said he might. I didn't think I got all that down accurately. I'd like to, have it be correct in my own notes. So I think that would be helpful.
If you would like me to reread it, I'm happy to, but we will have minutes transcribed for this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so that's another question. Will we need a secretary to keep minutes, or how will that?
For your public meetings, we are recording them and we have a transcription service that we're using to document the minutes, and that would be available for your committee.
Great. So none of us have to take the role of
my preference is that no, because I would rather have you focus on the content of the meeting rather than focusing on trying to capture. I find that if you're the secretary, it's hard for you to focus on delivering content or absorbing and discussing.
Right. And I don't believe we need a vote on this. This isn't really, we're just asking for volunteers, but we do want to open it up again to, as you said, Mark, to public expression if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
And I'm looking for any raised hands. And then
Not seeing any.
I see Bruce's raised hand.
Bruce, please, Bruce.
Since I'm not a member of this committee officially, I'm on the board of directors, of course, executive committee, and the finance committee. But I just want to say, as a member of the public and a member of these boards, and looking forward to the relationship, the working relationship with this committee, that all eyes on all things all the time. I think that should be our rule. And I know that your task is a year-end report, which if we wait to the end of the year to state something, we've missed it. And so I would just hope that all eyes on all things all the time. And as you do your bylaws, I think it's important to maybe take a look at communication protocols and interactions with the executive committee, particularly as we're the ones that will be shaping the agenda, and then to the board. We're here to keep this thing on the track and to make sure that it's getting where it wants to go. And you're there to make sure that we're doing it properly. And so I just look forward to all eyes on all things all the time, and a communication protocol that identifies issues at the earliest possible moment and communicates them to the executive committee at the earliest possible moment, so that we can solve problems real time and be proud of the work that we're doing. So as a member of the public, that's all I have to say. Fantastic.
Great. And so that would close public expression. Doesn't look like we have anyone else. We're on to item number 10, which would be the meeting schedule. And to establish a regular meeting schedule, I guess the first question is, do we meet more? Does everyone want to meet once a month? Do you want to meet more often? Do you want to be flexible? Of course, because under the Brown Act, we're going to have to announce ahead of time. How do people feel about this? Stephen, please.
I would like us to have a meeting next month and one in January. Hopefully to deal with the bylaws early and get that handled. And then one other meeting to talk about any agenda items or anything that we as a committee would like to have on our radar and our list to pay particular attention to. And then after that, we can see whether we need to want to meet at that frequency or quarterly or whatever.
Larry, please.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest was if you have a regular meeting schedule at once a month, you don't have to have the meeting, but at least it's already on the agenda as part of your Brown Act requirements. And that way, what we can do as subcommittees is to have the flexibility for each of us to also meet individually. So most likely in the beginning, we would have a commitment of probably 2 meetings a month at a minimum.
Okay.
And any more opinions, comments anyone would like to make? Kingston, please.
Yeah, I'd like once a month, and we can certainly schedule special meetings, especially on the bylaws. But I'd move it out. We got to have some regularity here.
Okay, so Carolyn?
Yeah, I thought Stephen's suggestion was good, that we meet, well, this is December, but I guess
Right.
one more time this month and in January, and straighten out our bylaws and, get to know each other a little bit. And after that, we could set probably a less frequent schedule. I wanted to ask, Ruth said our task is a year-end report. Are we doing a report for 2020, or that goes over to 2021, or the fiscal year, which I believe is July? When would be our first report?
Mark, do you want to address that, or?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And great question, Carolyn, because the language really is silent to what describes year end. Reading between the lines, my assumption is it's the fiscal year end.
Okay. So July 2021.
Which works well because we really did not start work until July of 20. So if we would have 6 months worth of a year-end report now.
Okay.
Clarification, someone just said July of 21. Is your fiscal year June 30th?
We are coming up on the holidays, so if we're gonna have another meeting, it's gonna have to be in a couple of weeks. Can the bylaws be developed by then?
I think the suggestion was to have that meeting specifically to work on the bylaws. Was that you, Stephen, that was suggesting that?
No, I hope the bylaws committee, I think Kingston, I hope they got it done and, or at least most of it done. And if there are questions that we should discuss and deliberate on, we can do it then to come up with, or if it's all ready to go, then let's do it.
And Max, you had your hand up?
Yeah,
Please.
I was gonna say, I think what Kingston was thinking, which is, we've selected some folks to work on the bylaws as a subcommittee. And I believe that as a subcommittee that we can meet, without dealing with noticing the meetings, right? And so we can meet hopefully, 2 times in the next month. If we have our first meeting or our second meeting in January, then we can bring a finished product versus having all of us have to gather and figure it out with the holidays and then maybe not have a finished product for the bylaws. So I would say let's have the first meeting, maybe early January. And I like Stephen's suggestion of, maybe once a month. And then, if after a few months we feel like it's too much, then we can move to every other month or quarterly.
I think that's a good suggestion.
And Larry, if I may. So one of the things that I probably should have mentioned when we were at the bylaws, but it also ties into the timing of your meetings. And when it comes to bylaws, all the bylaws must be approved by the board of directors for all of the committees, select ops committee, the advisory technical committee, all have to accept those bylaws. And the process that we've developed that has worked well is that the first step is to a high level review from the executive committee. They give they would give a detailed review and recommendations to the bylaws subcommittee, and then could go back to, this is after your board or your committee feels good with it. And then it would go to the next board of directors meeting for its final approval. And we've been on a first Thursday of the month pattern for the executive committee, and we've been on a third Thursday of the month for the board of directors. And again, timing wise, in order for me to meet the Brown Act for those committees, I typically have the agenda and the packet completed on the Friday prior to the meeting so that we can post it on Monday to meet the 72 hours.
Okay, very good, very good. So the other question is, are people comfortable with the 6 to 8 p.m. time slot? Okay, good.
Is there any chance that we could do it a little earlier than that? Right, I know that Max has issues about, but could we do 5? Would that work for any, or is that a problem?
And if I might suggest, Larry, you and I can coordinate offline from this meeting to find the best regular meeting date for the group rather than burning time in this meeting, if that.
Right. Very good. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue to discuss that. And then Pat and Carolyn, you both have your hands up. Pat, please.
I was just going to second what Lucy was saying, that I know that Max is the one who is still out there in the working world and it may not work for him, but 5 o'clock would be easier for me, but I'm flexible if need be.
Okay. Does anyone have any? Go ahead, Carolyn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I prefer 5, but if it doesn't work for Max or others, that's fine.
Max?
Yeah, I would prefer 5:30 if that's okay with folks. I personally, here in working from home, 5 is fine, but that could change, and I think it's good to have a set time. I also have a personal beef with government agencies that meet during the day and make it inaccessible to working people beyond me. So where I can influence groups to meet in the evening, I do. So it's not just about me, but 5:30 would be fine if that's okay with folks.
So you're looking for a compromise, in other words.
Right. In other words, yeah.
Is everyone? Carolyn, go ahead.
Well, I go to other monthly meetings and some of them start at 7 and that it works also.
Mhm.
7 to 9 seems like it would be okay too.
Any opinions there, folks?
It's close to my bedtime.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, earlier the better.
Yeah.
Earlier the better. Well,
Okay.
why don't we listen? This is not something that has to be set in stone forever. So why don't we start with 5:30? Seems like a reasonable compromise, and go from there. And if we feel like we want to adjust the day or the time, we can do so.
Sounds like
That's
a
good.
plan. Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, very good. And we'll talk offline, but maybe the 5th and the 26th of January might be two possible dates. Those are both Tuesdays. I have one issue, which would be the third Tuesday of the month is always the Marin Conservation League meeting at 6 p.m. But other than that, I'm pretty flexible.
And just for background information, when we worked out the logistics of this meeting, the first Tuesday and the last Tuesday tended to be the most open days for this group of 9.
All right, very good. Okay, so that kind of works out. That works out. That's it. Okay, so Larry, please, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we have a regular meeting scheduled for once a month, then that fourth Tuesday is probably the best because it's after the Thursday meetings where I think they said it was the executive board or the board members meet. Because we would probably want to be looking at what they do and say, and then having a discussion after that.
It's very reasonable. That sounds good. So fourth Tuesday, unless anyone has a real issue with the fourth Tuesday, would be our regular meeting day to begin.
I have no issue, just a question or clarification. Would we be meeting again this month on December 29th?
Sure.
That's
Sure.
really up to the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to any great parties that night, so.
Ah,
That's fine.
Well, it's too, I thought we were going to let the bylaws committee do a couple of meetings and then we would hear their recommendations in January. I thought that was our plan,
Yeah, January 5th. Right?
which makes sense to me.
well, as this is a democracy, what would people like?
What does the committee want? How much time does the bylaws committee think they need?
That's hard to say until we see them. We may not need a lot of time if we get a good template. It may need and since there's already bylaws for the other groups, committees, it shouldn't be that much of a problem, I'm imagining. I hope not, at least. So
Could I make a suggestion?
please.
Why don't, we could, if those of us who are on the bylaws committee can work out a schedule offline when we can get the work done.
Right.
But if we put for the month of January, the first Tuesday, the 5th, and I'm not looking at a calendar, but put 2 on for that month, then we would be able to have a draft of the bylaws ready for the executive committee. And then we could have our regular meetings going forward on the 4th Tuesday of each month. Does that make sense?
I think so.
It does, yes.
One hold up on that, and I would force an amended board packet because I have to.
Okay.
I would have to post on the 4th of January for the executive committee that's on that first Thursday.
So we want to aim for the 29th of December then?
In that case.
Is that from, it works for Mark, right?
Yeah, it's only a week difference.
And to Larry's point, you can schedule it and then end up canceling it.
Yeah.
You're better off going that route than adding a meeting. Larry Chu's point.
Right.
That works for me.
Okay,
So we're saying the 29th of December
correct.
for the bylaws committee.
No, for
For this committee,
this committee.
Oh, okay.
That's all the meat, what they're suggesting.
to approve the bylaws, and perhaps we'll find other wonderful things to talk about as well.
What we got
Oh.
for Christmas, man?
Or we can just have a party at Stevens.
Via Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on to item 11. Unless there's any more anyone want to say about the meeting schedule, I think we pretty much finished there. Okay, very
What time? 5:30?
5:30.
Okay.
Mark, do you need us to approve it since it's an official act to be on the website and such?
No,
No.
meeting schedules don't have to be.
And Mark, I think this is you to review Brown Act meeting constraints and requirements.
Yes, sir. And I will be very brief. I think many of you have considerable experience with Brown Act. But again, for the public that's monitoring or watching today and also for baseline, I think it would be good to talk about it. And again, I'll be brief. And I think everyone knows the purpose of the Brown Act is for transparency and inclusion of the public, which is just proving to be very important and has been beneficial from the very beginning of the MWPA to have this level of inclusion from the public. I found that a guide that was written by the League of California Cities about the Brown Act was very comprehensive and actually a fairly easy read to help me to understand the Brown Act much better. The things that really pertain to the Citizens Oversight Committee, we've already talked about a little bit of it, is the agenda and packet prep and the timelines that we have to meet. And the agendas and the packets must be posted physically and on our website 72 hours prior to the meeting. And so I will work with you, Larry, provide the staff work for that agenda prep and packet prep, and then make sure that it is posted on time. And then, of course, we have the meeting process, which again, you guys have seen the process that we go through and all the councils, making sure that anything that requires a vote, that we go through the voting process properly, that we provide for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. One of the things that we've been struggling with the exec committee and the board of directors is differentiating between questions and discussion, and a reminder that we really need to hit questions first, go to public comment, and then go to discussion during our agenda items. One of the things that I do not think that is going to be super pertinent to the Citizens Oversight Committee is closed sessions. I don't think there would be anything that would meet closed session requirements for the Citizens Oversight Committee. Especially what your purpose is. It would be kind of ironic for the Citizens Oversight Committee to have a closed session. And then finally, subcommittees, as Max brought up, if ad hoc subcommittees are kept under the quorum, then they are not subject to the Brown Act. However, it does not mean that you don't open it to the public. If you wish, you can have your ad hoc subcommittees be open to the public. You just would not have to meet the requirements of agenda posting, public comment, so on and so forth. And I'm open to any questions.
Larry.
Mark, since you're presenting this, can you also explain to people who may not have the background in it about serial meetings?
That's a great topic. Serial meetings would be if, and someone that's in my position can quite often fall into the trap of running into serial meetings. And if you guys don't mind, I'll use some of the names here just to make the conversation easier to follow. Perhaps Larry Chu and I sit down and have a conversation about a particular item. Let's say it's bylaws, and I say blah, blah, blah about the bylaws. And then Larry says, well, I don't like that, and says this. And then I go to Kingston and say, hey, I was talking to Larry and Larry said this. And if I continue that to the point that I hit and create some type of discussion that goes towards a decision that the public was never privy to, then we run ourselves into a serial meeting. One of the easy ways to run into serial meetings also is reply all to emails. And so quite often you'll see that when I'm emailing the entire COC, it'll be a blind CC, so that if you accidentally hit reply all, it only goes to me and we can avoid any serial meeting. And then the ever-present phone, well, you can't really see it because of my background, the ever-present phone during meetings and texting between members during the meeting could help constitute a serial meeting. But if not a serial meeting, it is a conversation that the public is not privy to.
Yeah, and the other nuance to that is you can't involve more than a quorum of this body.
Exactly.
Yeah, so 4 people can have a discussion, and that's the limit. Now, there's one other component of it, and that is that all of us can be members of the public and observe a meeting, but we cannot participate in it if we would break the Brown Act.
Okay, very good. Any questions from anyone at this point?
I did see Lucy raise her hand a little bit ago.
Lucy, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Well, it's really an academic question. Is that if one were to have a conversation with somebody without anticipating that it would be serial, and in what sense? I mean, if one says this is a conversation just between you and me and it's not to be discussed, would that be preventing? Would that be sufficiently preventing, or it's simply common sense not to do it so that it doesn't become a snowball? If you see what my question is, little, you know.
And it is a fine line, and obviously board member or committee members in this case will have a desire to communicate with each other, and as long as it the best rule of thumb is to not necessarily share another committee member's opinion to another committee member. So that Lucy, if you were talking to Larry Minikis and then you go talk to Rebecca, you say, well, Larry's thoughts were this. That's how you can avoid the serial meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that. That's really helpful. And we're on to number 12. We're really moving along here. Information items. Mark, is that you for information items?
It's information items for any of the committee members if they wanted to provide information.
Any committee members, is there any information you would like to bring forward at this point? Stephen.
Yes, it's not so much I'm providing information, but I would like to get information sometime. And maybe Carolyn and Larry Minikis can provide this. I'm curious as to where the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership and FERN and the Fire and Environment Working Group and any other environmental groups, how they fit together. Do they communicate with each other? How they see themselves as communicating with the MWPA? So it's not tonight, but anytime.
And I can follow up with that just to let you know that we are working as the executive committee with me and then making a recommendation to the board of directors how to formalize that process.
Good.
It's a work in progress, Stephen. Great question, contemporary question that we're struggling with a little bit right now. Thanks, Mark. And we'll look forward to more further discussion on that and deliberations. It's not clear. I'll just say that ESP, we have asked, Bill Cole will be addressing the board later this month. The executive committee will be discussing that. We're firm on that, but there's a whole lot of work to be done to flesh out the details, who ESP is, what the agreements are. We have nothing in writing. It's all, gentleman's agreement. So we have a lot of work to do there. You're going to help us weave through that. Thank you.
Good. Okay, and that brings us to item 13, which is members' requests for future agenda items. And I'll start because what I was going to suggest is we bring ESP into the Mike Swayze and Bell Cole to speak to us next time, because they are the other half of the citizens working on everything. And we will be, I feel, working very closely with ESP and their various committees, because they're working very closely with the MWPA. And so maybe that will help flesh out some of this for the next agenda. And we may be able to do that even December 29th, depending on how how it looks with the bylaws. Let's just put it that way. The bylaws look like, okay, everyone will look at these and they're not gonna have a problem with them, and we know we'll move quickly. That might be the time to have ESP speak to us. We'll know more in a couple of weeks. And now I'll open up. Stephen, you had your hand up.
No, I'm thanking you. Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
spoke too early. You were right. Good.
No, and I was thinking, oh, that's what I was going to cover. Yeah, yes, Max, please.
Yeah, I would like to request an item pertaining to maybe a deeper dive into the finances. Obviously, there's the finance committee, which we can all attend, but whether it's Kingston or Larry Chu as kind of our liaisons to that committee, giving their perspective, or from Mark or someone else who's actually on the finance committee coming and presenting to us. I think that would be helpful given that we'll have to write a report just in these 6 months, 7 months will go by really quickly. So I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Max. And that reminded me of something I did want to say, which is if you've not reviewed the CWPP draft, we have to comment by December 10th to it. And it's pretty thick document, but it's really section 9, which talks about where the action items are that I would like to just draw this committee's attention to. That's the important section for us, because that's the meat of what they're going to do, and where the things we're going to be looking at. So that would be my suggestion there as well. And does anyone else? Larry, please.
Yeah, Mark, do you publish the warrants for the board?
As far as,
Is that part of their regular consent agenda, items whenever they have their meetings?
do I post them?
Yeah. Do you post it to the board to be able to vote on them?
So I'm not 100% sure I'm following your question. So as far as the consent items or any,
Well, anytime you have expenditures, you would just have a list of what there is. It's usually a list of your warrants, checks.
okay. Yeah, we publish a budget report and that lists our expenditures that we have and our, I'm not tracking.
Well, this would be at the individual line item detail.
A check register.
Yes.
At our finance committee and actually at our board committee, it has been down to the individual payments on the budget reports.
Yes.
Yeah. So if this body could get a copy of that anytime they're published, then that would probably be one of the key tools that we would need.
Absolutely.
We're near adjourning here. Does anyone have any comments that you'd like to make at this point? Any closing comments? Please feel free. Seeing none. Max, please.
Just I guess a question or clarification for Mark. Since we have a couple of committees, are we going to get sent a roster? I know we can't all collectively correspond with each other, but just to do the follow-ups.
Absolutely.
Cool, thanks.
Could that include the roster? Could that include emails and telephone numbers so that if our little group needs to get together, we can?
Yes,
Be helpful.
Right.
I'll take care of that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Hey, seeing nothing else, unless you want to keep meeting this evening.
I move to adjourn.
Well
Very
done
good.
to finish before the time limit.
Yes.
Pretty good. This may not happen often, folks, so enjoy it.
Definitely doesn't happen much with the
Good meeting.
MWPA.
Anyway,
at this
nice
time.
to meet everybody.
Pleasure.
Likewise.
And thank you for your confidence. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to actually meeting everybody someday.
Oh, one day.
Right. Yeah. God
Someday
willing.
over the rainbow.
Yeah.
All right.
Really red slippers.
Good. Have a good evening, everyone.
Can't wait to
Okay.
work together. Looking forward to working with you all.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
And I'm going to stop recording.